Welcome to Could Be Worse, a comedic literary analysis of dystopian novels. Given our primary materials, we will be talking about intense and sometimes upsetting subjects. This week, there is a whole lot of discussion of murder, eye/body horror, and mention of sexual assault. As always, we encourage you to interact with that subject matter in whichever way is healthiest for you. Also, here is your weekly reminder that we swear a lot and make some ribald jokes, so if, like me, you blast your podcast while cooking for your family, maybe some earbuds wouldn't go amiss. You know, you do you. Enjoy the show!
Sky smoky overhead, all your friends are dead, and your government heads despise you. Members of the church criticize you. Aliens annexed your country. When the rats or the plague or the bread or the circus or the prevailing lack of a meaningful purpose, if injustice or sadness or robots feel like a curse, books never let you forget. It could be worse.
Yeah, we decided we should probably start recording since we had started talking in the way that is usually our intro.
We just started going in hard on Star Wars deleted scenes.
Yeah, we're not done with it. We're not done with the franchise. So...
I'm never done with that franchise.
Yeah.
As someone who grew up, I did not grow up. I didn't watch Star Trek. I watched the original series after school occasionally because it was on TV Land in the same block as Batman.
See, when I watched TV Land and or Nick at Night, it was always like, it was always about some kind of family or put together group that was also singing and traveling.
I watched a lot of the Partridge Family. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah. Man, Danny Bonaducci, such a disappointment as a human when I grew up being like, oh, what a beautiful ginger boy. And then he turned into like a walking freckle nightmare.
Yeah, that was a real heartbreak. I will also say the only episode of Partridge Family I strongly remember is the one where the girl starts picking up radio signals on her braces.
Yeah, I mean, because that was like, if the Partridge Family met like So Weird or the X-Files, it felt so zany.
Partridge Family was a heck of a series. I mean, I watched the Brady Bunch too, but yeah, I watched mostly Batman on TV Land as a kid. Oh, and Mama's Family.
Mama's Family?
It is technically a spin-off of the Carol Burnett show.
Okay, like a spin-off of a sketch?
Yes.
Like it Frasiered a sketch?
Oh my god. What's her name? Hang on. My mom's gonna fucking kill me for not knowing her name off the top of my head.
Is it Carol?
And it's not Carol.
Woman's name.
I don't know if Carol Burnett actually ever appeared on Mama's Family.
Carol's too good for it, I see.
Well, her character, Carol Burnett was kind of busy.
Name one thing
Vicki
Carol
Lawrence.
Burnett was doing.
Vicki Lawrence took her character Mama from these really awesome sketches from the Carol Burnett show and turned it into a TV show. That was very funny. She was a cranky old Southern lady who didn't have time for anybody's bullshit.
I think I need to look up what Vicki Lawrence looks like. Hi guys, this is Could Be Worse, a dystopian literature podcast.
Where we also talk about our favorite Carol Burnett sketches. I mean, there's just so many. I watched the special. They just had the special on CBS not too long ago.
There was some kind of anniversary, if I'm not mistaken.
Anyway, they had this part where they were all doing, like, the songs. Mm-hmm. And Stephen Colbert was hosting that section. And it did have Kristen Chenoweth and Bernadette Peters in it.
Oh, good.
It was a delight. I don't know if it was intentional. The last time Caitlin and I went to Emerald City Comic Con, I could have sworn someone was dressed up as Carol Burnett's character from that sketch. They were not. They were dressed up as some kind of Queen of Hearts character, but it looked identical to that curtain dress. So I wonder if maybe it was some kind of video game character, and the inspiration's taken from that, and the cosplayer's just like, whatever. Carol,
or
who?
it's one of those, like, really bizarre hybrid, like, chimeral costumes people come up with for Comic-Cons. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I did that. I've done that. I did
No,
that for
I'm not saying
Halloween.
it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that there are bananas costumes that people put hundreds of dollars into where it's just like, hi, I just wanted to be a pun today. You know?
I did go up to her and say, nice Carol Burnett costume, and she looked at me like I had, like, vomited on the floor.
Wow. It was disgust, not confusion?
A bit of column A and a bit of column B, honestly.
Is there not always a touch of confusion and disgust, you know?
Yeah. Anytime I talk to someone at a convention, they're like, ugh, why? I'm
You are
kidding.
particularly gregarious at conventions, which I would say that most people who attend conventions are unused to.
Yeah. I make a lot of convention friends. Hi to some of them. Some of them listen to this.
Nice. I don't. I just hang out with gregarious people and make friends by proxy.
Yeah.
That happened recently.
Ooh.
I went to go see this show in Seattle called Ghost Quartet. It's like an atypical musical. It's kind of like a performative concept album almost. Really, really good. I went into it totally blind. Did not know it was one of those musicals that people, like... We couldn't figure out the word for it because it is firmly not the term groupies. Because groupies has, like, a connotation to it. But, like deadheads are people who follow Grateful Dead around, but they're not groupies.
Are they like parrot heads?
Yeah, as, you know, parrot heads, the deadheads of Jimmy Buffett. But, like, I don't know, like, this one girl, she saw the show for the first time in October, and she's seen it over 16 times by this point.
I don't love anything that much.
Yeah, some people a girl traveled from Mexico to Seattle to see this show. And, like, I went in totally blind, just like, yeah, it sounded pretty cool, I guess. And it was just a ton of people who know a lot more about theater than me. Anyway, sorry, that was a weird tangent, but if anyone knows the term for someone who follows a group around for love of the game, not because they want to bone anybody, would love to know that terminology.
Yeah, because I know the big band that a lot of people have done that for. My high school chemistry teacher did this. He followed fish around for a while. A lot of people follow fish around for a while.
Why is it specific bands? I feel like not a lot of people do that for just any band. You know?
I'm trying to think. There's been, I've known some people who followed more modern bands around, but it's been like, oh, well, they're on the Vans Warped Tour, so I just go to every Vans Warped Tour destination.
Which is different.
Yeah.
That's like you're following a festival around and, like, it's conceivable you could see shows every time that, like, or not every time, but certainly the first 10 times that you might not have either otherwise seen. But, like, it's weird. Who decides what band is a lifestyle band, you know? Like Deadheads, lifestyle band. Jimmy Buffett, lifestyle band. Fish, lifestyle band?
Portion of your life band.
Yeah.
Because it's not because, I mean, like I said, my high school chemistry teacher did it.
Yeah.
He doesn't listen to Fish anymore, but that was like a good 2 years of his life.
Fish is maybe like a rite of passage band for a specific kind of person. Like,
Yeah.
it's the backpacking in Europe thing.
That is exactly who my chemistry teacher was. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and apologize in case some of it gets on a thing. I live near a military base, and they're pumping the jets today.
Oh.
So if it ever gets really buck wild, I'm sorry.
Oh, it'll give it that, like, cute dystopian vibe, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I
that
live in a
martial law
military
feel.
state.
Which, I'm just going to use that to gently segue, brings us to the book we read. Book is a grandiose term for 19 pages of rollipping Phillip K. Dick action.
Yeah.
We read Minority Report.
Phillip K. Dick.
Yeah.
And we also, I watched the whole movie.
I watched an amount of the movie.
But you've seen it before.
Yeah, I've seen, I forgot. Let's get into this discussion. There's going to be just the silliest little summary right here. John Anderton is the head of Pre-Crime, a police unit that uses 3 precogs, individuals who can see crimes committed in the future, to arrest people before they commit violent crime, until his name appears as a future murderer. He evades arrest and finds Leopold Kaplan, the man who he is supposed to kill, a man who works for the military and wants to help Anderton clear his name and dismantle the now obviously dysfunctional pre-crime division for good. Anderton breaks into his old office to gather the necessary evidence to clear his name, only to discover that Kaplan had wielded the pre-crime system as a tool to start a timeline where he would commit a murder he was never otherwise going to commit. Anderton, with help from his wife and his successor as the chief of pre-crime, follows through with killing Kaplan to preserve pre-crime from being dismantled, as the chief is the only person who could be framed this way. He and his wife are exiled from Earth, and pre-crime continues, thwarting the rise of military law. Wasn't that a fun, silly little summary?
So goofy.
That was probably like 4 sentences. I haven't done it yet, but I bet it's gonna be...
it's gonna be a romp.
Yeah, I'm just gonna see how short a summary I can do for it, because I don't know about how it was formatted when you read it, but this shit was 19 pages.
Yeah, it's pretty short. I found a PDF online, so there's some typos.
Yeah, that was weird, right?
Yeah, but I wasn't gonna, go... No, sorry, Philip. I wasn't gonna go buy a whole story collection. I'm broke.
And the other thing is that, I knew that there was I used the library app Libby on my phone. Big fan of the Libby app. But it makes it super, super easy to send library books to your Kindle. And you can listen to audiobooks from the library directly from it. I'm a really big fan of it. I might get rid of certain services I subscribe to because it is pretty comprehensive. Anyway.
But let's not say the name of those services just in case they ever decide they want to sponsor us.
Yeah, or just the wild audiences that we get with our podcast. Anyway.
What do you mean you don't want to use my personal service anymore? Oh my god.
No,
Gregory Kindle.
Gregory Kindle. My only love. It's on again, off again. Anyway. But I could have gotten it just from the library, and so I sort of swam out of that little murky ethical pool by being like, I would get it for free anyway. But it is pretty disheartening when you're, let's just say it, pirating literature, and you come across a typo, and you're like, I'm just gonna read this quick little story and then double check and make sure all the details are right in case it's some sort of weird fan rewrite, or I somehow stumbled onto a Minority Report AU from Archive of Our Own or something.
I didn't even check to see if that existed. Shame on me. We should make that a new segment.
Oh yeah,
Does this have fan fiction?
Oh my god!
I'm not saying I have an Archive of Our Own tab open right now. But let's say I did. Let's see here.
Everybody's... Let's just assume that everyone on the planet has opened the world's premier fan-created fan fiction website today and just move forward in no guilt, no shame, no copyright law. Let's just move forward like that.
Yeah. It's not freaking... We're never going to read an Anne Rice book. There are, not for the book, unfortunately, not for the story, but there are 19 fanfics in Minority Report, the movie.
Mm-hmm. Ah.
Including one that's a crossover with SWAT and one that's a crossover with Blade Runner 2049. Both of those are in Chinese, I believe.
Huh. Interesting crossover.
A lot of stuff in Chinese. And one in Cyrillic.
Huh. Well, all of the character-based language... That's not true, but too big character based. Like, I'm gonna move on before I seem, just incomprehensibly ignorant.
Anyway,
what did you think
weird
of these sweet 19 pages?
No, not 19. There's just 19 fics. There's one page.
Oh, no, what I'm saying is that the PDF we read was 19 pages long.
Spooky.
Yeah. It's a fell zodiac we've stumbled onto.
I mean, follow your heart if you want to check those out at Archive of Our Own. 2 are locked, so you do have to have an account to read them.
Oh, well. I don't have an account. Do you have an account?
I do. I can send you an invite.
Cool.
I got it solely so I could read locked ones.
Yeah, I don't think I even knew about the existence of locked fic. And currently, I just didn't know if I was ready to commit, having another username out there, because I'm certainly not going to use just my name. And I don't want to necessarily, you know what I mean? Like,
Here's all the gross fanfics that Caitlin Obum likes.
Okay, let's not act like I'm, a filth pot. Just like, give me... I only read mature and above. Sometimes I'll dip my toe into a teen rating. Not about that. Anyway, I just didn't know if I was willing to commit. But
There's some good stuff behind that wall, I'll tell you.
I like how it's not technically a paywall. Jesus, a paywall. Paywall. Sorry, I'm just imagining like a website that has a hazing ritual.
I am sure many fan communities have hazing rituals. Especially like back in the day when like it was like GeoCities.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, one quick thing, and then we are gonna talk about this fucking book. One time I read a like someone's personal blog online about how they got caught up into like a Lord of the Rings cult. And it just ate my entire, 3 whole days of my life. I was just obsessing about this girl's story. It had everything. It was intrigue. It was twists, turns, unexpected identity reveals. It was bananas. And so ever since then, I've just always kind of been on the lookout for little fandom niches that are a little culty. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love it.
Because there's no way that the person who started this first one isn't still trying, Yeah. Anyway.
Every time someone tells a story like that, and I see that, let me start from the beginning. I go downstairs, I pop a bag of popcorn, I settle in, and I get ready, because they're always so good. They're 20 pages long.
You gotta crack open 1 LaCroix and then have 2 on backup as the story gets more intense.
Chilling in a little ice bucket.
Yeah. Yeah. Just treat yourself to an evening. Anyway, how did you like Minority Report?
I liked it. It's very... it's not... Here's the thing. It's different from the movie, but it's not different from the movie at the same time. Kind of...
I feel like it's strongly really different from the movie.
The principles and what the main character wants to achieve are different.
And, the message.
The message is different, yeah.
And, literally everything, it's the plot. I mean, the only thing is just the concept of what if the guy who headed a precognitive crime unit got accused of murder.
Yeah.
But, the mechanics of how pre-crime works are different. The
punishment is different.
The punishment is different. The way that they trick the system is different.
And the way the system outputs is different, too.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay. Let's talk about the short story first, and then let's get into the delicious complexities of Tom Cruise's 2002 hit Minority Report, starring Max von Sydow. Wasn't expecting that. Anyway, can I say about the short story that it is deeply hilarious to me how much it is just about, like, late middle-aged male anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's more about late middle-aged male anxiety than it is about crime.
It's more like, I'm going to become obsolete. What do I do about this?
Yeah, literally every major character, apart from his wife, who actually has a, like, surprisingly large role in the short story. I was pretty gratified by that, actually.
Yeah, Lisa plays a big part.
Yeah, and, like, not just a simpering wife role, or, like, it's not a simpering wife or a damsel or a, like, evil bitch sex goddess. You know what I mean? The, like, three main sci-fi.
Yeah. She's like, I'm just a thinking person who's just trying to do their job.
Yeah, like, I have beliefs and principles, and I try my best to enact those even when it causes me distress. Like, way to go, Lisa. You are the only person acting fully off of that. But, yeah, so the way that they trick the system in the short story, is that I don't even know, there's a little bit of a, like, how could the army have known that this would happen? But basically, the precogs react to a plot in a sequential way. So the army sets up, because basically it's in this world where there was a war, there was martial law for a long time, and the army wants to regain control of domestic happenings, and so they want to shut down the police force, because the police force is exclusively pre-crime now. And so they put some plants into the pre-crime unit, and then the first precog sees that Anderton will uncover the plot, or will find out about the plot because he is accused of murder. His response will be to kill Kaplan, but then by getting information that Kaplan was the one who planted it, he, like, won't commit the crime. And then the third precog, like,
sees that
taking
in order
those
to
both
maintain pre-crime,
Yeah.
that he will kill Kaplan to fulfill
Yeah,
the
so it's
priority.
like-
So it shows, so that becomes the majority report, and him not killing. So the one that happened after the second precogs becomes the minority report.
And it's important to note that in the short story, people know about the minority report. Like, in the movie, it's like John Anderton, which, can we just address that his name just should have been Anderson?
Yeah.
Like, why did you even do it? Why? But in the movie, he's told about pre-crime by, like, that the minority report, like, being a factor in pre-crime and it being rare. And he's told this by fucking Professor Sprout.
Yeah.
Who, for some reason, in the movie, there are, like, vines that move and plants that are aware of people. It doesn't make any fucking sense. But he doesn't even know about it. And then...
Because the minority report to the people who are working in the pre-crime unit deletes itself, but it's maintained within the precog.
Yeah. Whereas in the short story, like, it's one of those, like, oh, like a little bureaucratic quirk that not a lot of people know about outside of pre-crime, but everyone in pre-crime knows about. And minority reports are super, super common. And it's, like, really, really rare that all three precogs will agree. So, like, already the book is coming from a place of, like, yeah, it's okay if it mostly works. Because we all know that it mostly works.
It's like, basically, they're saying, pre-crime is saying, well, if 2 out of 3 people say this person is going to kill someone, then they must be right. And they're not willing to they're like, that 1 out of 3, not worth investigating.
Yeah. And
which
so
is terrifying.
Yeah, it's a bad system that you're supposed to kind of be like, oh, what a noble hero for, like, maintaining it. But Philip, I disagree. But so basically the way that they trick it is they realize that, like, by having the information, the person who is being accused of future murder, like, can change their path, but the only person who would be privy to that information would be John Anderton. So only the chief of police can be framed in this way in the short story. And so basically what happens is the title makes more sense because the title is Minority Report, and in this particular instance, because each of the three precogs saw something different, they're all minority reports. Because they're all just seeing events along the same timeline in a sequence.
Yeah.
And then the movie...
it's about echoes.
Can I just say the fucking tiny little wooden balls that they're printed onto, because they're like, see, the wood grain is... you can't replicate. You can't make fake wood. And it's like, okay, but... Because in the short story, the name of the murderer and the victim are both... And, like, I think what the crime is, I forget... are both printed on just, like, a little paper card, and one card goes to the police and one card goes to the army as, like, a checks and balance system.
Yeah. And then inside the machine, there's, like, a tape reel that is a more detailed version of events, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's, in the short story, what happens is that the precogs sort of speak aloud and talk into a computer, which analyzes all three of their descriptions of what's going to happen. And so their original reel with all of the analytics is stored. And then in the movie, they make these beautiful, just like coffee table art wooden balls, and they etch crimes. Or they don't even say, like...
It's only murder. That's the thing, is they can only predict murder. And
which isn't...
The color of the ball, it's red if it's a crime... No, it's red... Is it red if it's premeditated?
It's red if it's a crime of passion.
Crime of
which
passion. Almost
everything is at that point in the story, because everyone knows that if they do a premeditated murder, it'll show up weeks before at pre-crime.
Yeah.
But here's the fucking, like, even within what the universe kind of puts forward, it doesn't make sense that it only gets murderers. Because there's a scene where Tom Cruise as John Anderton, which is the funniest casting in the world, because Anderton is supposed to be, like, old,
the short story
kind of bald
opens
and
up
fat.
on him reflecting on, like, God, I'm getting fat and bald.
Yeah, so the idea of him being like, oh, there's a younger, more virile man than me, and he's like Tom Cruise in 2002 at the peak of his Tom Cruise-ness is inane, but fine. But he's jogging around the city, and there's this big old PSA about pre-crime going on in the background, because exposition. And there's a woman who's like, I was going to be raped. And, like, pre-crime stopped it. Which, there are sexual assault and murder crimes that happen together a lot. Yeah, sure. But it's weird that she's like... It's couched as, like, this is a crime that they stopped. And, like, we'll leave off the fact that I also would have been murdered.
Yeah.
Like, it's just weird that they, like, included it, and then they were like, oh, but we are unable to see that kind of crime. But also, somehow the system sees what the precogs see, and so you have a lot more, like, sort of like a mise en scène information on screen, going on in the movie, and, like, that makes sense. But I don't know why it was like, you can only have these individual wooden balls one that says the murderer's name and one that says the victim's name.
And then you get some weird footage.
Yeah, and then you get some weird footage that you get to, like, turn on classical music and fucking do interpretive dance to check it out. But, like, that's not a good checkable system. There's only one place where the name prints out. Like, there's only one place where the name prints out, and it's like the perpetrator and the victim aren't even in the same place. They come out in two different places. Like, what would happen in the early days of the system when those, like, balls would just be, like, rolling out one after the other? Like, there had to be some weird fucking juggling situation where somebody lost their fucking balls and then just had to, like, piece victims to murderers. Don't make no sense. Anyway.
I imagine in the world of the movie, I'm giving it a lot of credit here. I'm fleshing out the backstory in the way that Steven Spielberg never did. Which makes sense, you know. I mean, that movie was not short. It was
2.5 hours long, that film.
Yeah, it's extremely long. There was one point last night where I was like, we're not done yet? Oh my god.
There were multiple scenes where I was just like, ugh, I know it's not a dystopia, but why couldn't we have just watched AI like we talked about?
It takes so long for that movie to get to the inciting incident.
Oh my god.
It's like a good 35 minutes.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think you and I talked at like 10:30, and we're like, we're going to record at noon. And I was like, I wonder how much of the movie I can get in. And I, like, finished up doing some stuff, and then I started watching it a little before 11. And I think it took 40 full minutes to get to, hey, you've been accused of a murder.
Yeah. I watched it last night, pretty late into the night. Like, it got to 1-something, and I was like, we're not done yet?
It's so... Also, it's just the most early 2000s thing I've ever seen in my fucking life. And it's so weird to watch something that I remember as like, yeah, everyone agreed this was an incredible action movie, right? Like, it was very well received.
Yeah, no, it's, a lot of the stuff I looked up for, like, the science things, having to do with the movie were like, 15 years on, how accurate is Minority Report? So that would have been in 2017. These are all articles from 2017. It's strange, especially because one of the things I will say about the movie is everyone dresses, because it's supposed to take place in 2054, the near future, relatively. Everyone dresses like it's 2002.
Yeah.
Just, like, very, like, monochromatic, like that weird 2002 Gap style. But the thing is, I'm like, you know what? I could see that working for 2054.
Yeah, the fashion is not so much what I take umbrage with. It's, the amount of fucking insane infrastructure for, like, those, like, waterfall-style freeways. It takes 7 years to put in a single link light rail stop. My dudes, you are not gonna have an entirely different form of transportation up and running and super common
by 2054.
It's not going to happen.
Especially
Fix
because
one
I could
bridge
see it,
and get back to me.
I could see it being possible if there had also been a ton of robots in this movie.
Yeah,
that's the only way I could see us having straight up and down highways and magnet cars, is if also lots of robots, lots of androids. Because
can I just say, Lexus's dick was all up in that movie.
Lexus and Gatman.
Ugh, it was insane.
And Bulgari.
Oh my god!
Every time he checks his watch, it's like it's a Bulgari watch.
It's just oh boy, Bridget.
It felt like the advertising there felt like a mixture between Feed, so the book we've read previously, and Josie and the Pussycats.
Oh my god, but Josie and the Pussycats do it like no one else do. I love Josie and the Pussycats. Does that count as a dystopia? Could we do a special episode?
I think we could probably do a special episode. I was thinking about that when I was writing that note last night. I'm like, could we do a Josie and the... It is an advertising-based dystopia.
It is. And they're doing, it's like the army is involved in subliminal messaging. That's not kosher. We'll talk about it. But it was also very weird to see, like, the most extreme version of the, like, stylistic choices we're kind of finally starting to get away from. To, like, every fucking indoor scene at the beginning that wasn't in pre-crime had, like, you're like, is there just, like, smoke in every room to create this, like, hazy look? Like, because it doesn't even look like lens haze. It looks like something's on fire and you're not addressing it.
Just right off screen, there's a PA
and just, like,
screaming.
Desaturated, heavy blues, super intense contrast. Like, it was insane. And the fight scenes are... jaw-droppingly... They're like parodies of fight scenes. I
feel like that's
it.
pretty indicative of a Tom Cruise movie, though.
No, Bridget, this is different. This is a whole other level. It's the fight scene where they're making the car around him, and they're like, surely he got crushed when all the stuff got put into the car. And then he just fucking drives his future Lexus out like, you motherfucker. And Colin Farrell is just looking through the window. And, like, before he starts running, he just, like, makes eye contact with Tom Cruise and, like, holds up his hand and then punches his hand like, motherfucker. Yeah. Ugh.
It's so dumb.
This other man bested me. It cannot stand. I'm so Catholic, and I specifically mentioned that I'm Irish, and I am an Irish actor. But no, I will not use an accent, because what if middle America can't understand me?
Yeah, that felt very weird, especially because he very specifically mentioned that he was living in Dublin most of his life, because he saw his father murdered on their church steps 15 years ago. Like...
In Dublin.
You don't lose the accent that fast. It's fucking... like, that's not...
Yeah. It's very strange.
Such a weird choice.
In the short story... Is it a short story? It's not a novella. Novellas are longer.
Novellas are a bit more of a chunk. I'd say a novella has to be at least 40 pages.
Okay, thank you. But... in the short story, the army wants to shut down the police force entirely. Like, it's not they want to shut down pre-crime. They just don't want a police force. They want martial law to return like they had during whatever war happened.
The Anglo-Chinese War.
Yeah. So... then in the movie, they made the decision to have it be that the federal government / kind of the military, because it's the attorney general, but he's not trying to, like, make it a military thing. But, like, they want pre-crime to go national because currently it's just in D.C. And so, like, the main character comes to think of pre-crime as a bad thing, which kudos, Thomas. But
Whitwer is just really in the short story, Whitwer is there to basically the idea is that Whitwer is there to get it under Senate control, I guess.
Kind of, but he's also, like, in the short story... Are we talking about short story or the movie?
Short story.
Yeah, short story, it's a little bit that, but he's also supposed to be his Anderton's assistant until Anderton decides to retire.
Yeah, which Anderton feels like, oh, he's the one who's going to retire me. And it's like, no, we just want to make sure that someone is capable of replacing you when that does come around.
Yeah, but then in the movie...
hopping in, not knowing anything. In the movie, Whitwer is really just there to be like, I'm just here to check to make sure it's all working correct and you guys aren't doing anything funny.
Yeah, and then he's just like, hey, Anderton, for some reason in this film you are a drug addict, so you can't run this operation. But then But, like, he clearly has a job working directly under the U.S. Attorney General. And, like, he has this whole career thing going on that he doesn't really seem that interested in pre-crime beyond, like, asserting himself within it and doing his job and being recognized as, like, doing his job for the Attorney General. But then they definitely say later on, like, Whitworth wants your job. And there's been no direct indication to that effect.
Yeah. Also,
like, there's been an indication he doesn't want Anderton doing it because Anderton takes drugs.
Can we talk
and
about
is a
how
police
goofy,
officer.
how goofy the way one takes Narrowin is? Narrowin?
Oh my god.
Where it's a little, it looks like, honestly, it looks like you're sticking a USB into your mouth.
Yeah.
It looks like some kind of fidget toy, is what it looks like. Like a little button that you can just press and little air will come out.
Yeah.
Get on it, someone on Shark Tank. But you just inhale and the button decompresses and then you're on clarity.
What was the name of that fucking drink that was around for a long time that was making claims like there was like awake and happy and stuff like that, and it was like neuro something.
Oh.
It looked like Powerade, but it made all these claims about, like, we boost these things in your body.
I think I've had that.
Yeah. But it kind of just reminded me of that, and I sort of was like, why didn't they just take the opportunity to be like, yeah, Powerade, sponsor this real quick? Like, it's not like it would have ruined the integrity of the film, and it would have been a little less silly looking.
God, there are so many goofy
I don't know. I say that, but then
I
everybody would have made fun of it.
The singing cereal box is one of my favorites.
See, that's like a fun touch, though, because that's
I
also
love
like,
that.
it wasn't an ad for an actual cereal. It was just world building, which was fun. When they did world building stuff and not like being flashy just to be flashy or to make money outside of the context of just like selling a lot of tickets. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a scene where John and Agatha are in the mall and they're trying to get away from freaking Neil McDonough. I never learned any of his characters' names. He's just Neil McDonough. I'm like, Neil McDonough from Desperate Housewives.
I mean, I definitely called John Anderton Thomas a while ago, so I'm not going to sit here and shit on your way of telling characters apart.
But there's a really sick-looking Pepsi ad in the background that's, like, going across one of the things.
Can I just say really quick, because you said the word sick and it reminded me, here is why Minority Report fight scenes are different from regular Tom Cruise movie fight scenes. Very early on in the first big one where he's trying to get away from pre-crime and he says the tagline, "Everybody runs," for perhaps the 5th time in the film, less than an hour in, he hits somebody in the throat with like an electro baton that they're trying to use on him. And the guy projectile vomits so hard that he, like, I'm pretty sure he, like, pushes him into somebody else to, like, use the vomit as a distraction. Like,
yeah.
He, like, it was part of his plan somehow. Like,
oh, okay. So
okay,
those
well,
are
first
called
I'm gonna make
sick
this man
sticks.
puke. That's number 1 in my fist fight strat.
So what they're pointing at him are called sick sticks. That's what they do. He knows that's what they do.
Yeah, but see why, though, Bridget? Like, Bridget, why would you have something like that? Why
I
would
mean,
you,
if you
I'm
think about
losing
it,
my mind.
If you suddenly and unexpectedly vomit, that's going to incapacitate you pretty good.
Yeah, okay, here's the
Because
thing.
it's a really sharp electric shock that like, propels your body with vomit.
But here's the thing, okay? They are carrying sticks that make you vomit and legitimately wearing jetpacks, like fire shooting out the bottom jetpacks, like Rocketeers with like Epicac batons is what we're talking about on the police force. And like he vomits so hard that it genuinely seems like he kind of moves backwards at the speed of the guy with the jetpack later on. Like, it's not a normal fight scene, and I will fight anyone who tries to tell me that it is. That's where I'm at.
It's not a normal fight scene. I will say, I have a couple times vomited so hard my body did propel backwards a little bit.
I mean, I've tried to get away from some puke I was putting out into the world, but, like, who hasn't had a terrible demon child that they tried to scramble away from? You know what I'm saying? It's that in this world, they were like, how do we let the audience know that these are cops from the future in this movie? And Steven Spielberg, little Stevie Spiel, he was like, what if, though, they just made people vomit? That will be a futuristic touch.
Yeah. And the halo is, like, deeply terrifying.
The halo's like, okay, that's normal sci-fi to me. That's, like, not Black Mirror shit.
Oh, yeah.
But, not that Black Mirror came out before it. I don't want to litigate that. Anyway, but there was, okay, the pre-crime unit, as it existed in the short story, it was an interesting concept, plainly done on every level. Like, the writing in the short story is aggressively sufficient. Like, nothing went into the short story that didn't strictly have to in terms of finesse or style.
Yeah, there wasn't any floral descriptions and extraneous details.
The most that they did was just like, if you get caught for murder, you get life in prison or exile to another planet. Because do not forget, at all costs, we are in the future. So, like, that was a big futuristic thing. And then at the end, when they're getting exiled to another planet, which I have to assume they were going off to a ship, because it definitely did just say they were packing their stuff into a truck to get exiled to another planet, which was pretty funny.
Yeah. I think all the cars are flying cars in that, I guess, maybe? But it was really interesting to hear that they have, like, that's the option, and it's like, oh, if the option is, cool, I murder someone, and then if I'm high up enough, I just have to go live on a farm.
Yeah.
That's not that bad, as opposed to, like, and the detention camps are like, cool, you're just in prison for the rest of your life.
But were they, though?
Yes, they were. They were active. Because he does mention at one point, like, he's like, oh, I can't be in a detention camp. People know who I am. They'll kill me in there.
Yes, but I also think that I got the impression they were in the camp for a specific period of time.
I don't think the whole thing is they're never let out.
Okay, all right.
I think.
I'm glad that he maintained that system as the hero of the story. But at the very end, when they're getting exiled to another planet, which apparently he gets, but other pre-crime people don't get.
It's because he's fancy. Because he can't go to the detention camp or else he'll get murdered.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Other people probably get murdered in the detention. Why not?
I'm sure they send lesser cops to detention camps if they do anything like that.
But the only thing where they're like, let's put a little future flair on this, is his wife saying, oh, I guess we don't have to take our appliances because they're all atronic, and I hear they're still on electricity on Jupiter? Did they say they were going to Jupiter?
I'm gonna pull it up real quick. It's a goofy planet name.
Yeah, it was a silly planet to go to. That's all I remember thinking.
Oh, Centaurus X.
Ugh, it's pretty goofy.
Or Centon is where they're going. I don't know if that's just a nickname or if that's, like, something within the system that they're going to.
Yeah. It's just, there wasn't a lot of flair. It was just like, we are going to focus on how one person would deal with this. And when he, like, got his new papers, it was, like, literally paperwork. It was just paperwork.
As opposed to the
that
movie
he got
where
in a little
it's like,
packet.
you get your eyes taken out.
Yeah,
By Peter Stormare.
fucking what? It just added all this time that didn't need to be there in a movie that was like onanistic in the length of its fight scenes, and just like, it just was a movie of pure excess, which totally makes sense for 2002.
Yeah, there was a good decade or so, and he probably still is in quite a few, of like Peter Stormare playing that guy.
I don't know who Peter Stormare is.
He was the guy who removed the eyeballs, so he was that doctor, the plastic surgeon that lit people on fire.
Oh, yeah.
But he took out his eyeballs. He plays like the character who's not like a big part of the story, but he's like, he's a character. He did that a lot. He was in Brothers Grimm. He just in the 2000s, he was in fucking everything. He did a really good, he played a really good villain living on like a militarized compound in Longmire recently.
Huh.
Feel free to respond and shame me, a 26-year-old, for watching Longmire.
Keeping it on in the truck. How did I totally forget how to say keep on trucking?
I don't know.
Keeping on trucking? Keeping on There's no... Oh, I'm falling apart. Bridget?
Let's talk about the precogs.
Yeah.
Can I just say, the fact that they're sitting in photon milk.
Ugh.
Milk.
What
that
does
creepy
that
guy
even
saying the
mean,
word
Steve?
milk. And the way... Ugh.
They're sitting in milk.
Also, I did not know that. I did not notice this. I've seen Minority Report a couple of times. It's come on TNT throughout my life, and I've been like, yeah, I'll watch Minority Report. And I guess I was obviously watching the TV versions. I watched the film version, and I'm like, oh, you can see Agatha's nipples.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And I did not notice, because I watched the TV version growing up, so I was like, oh, wow, this makes him even more creepy.
See, we had it on DVD. Like, the moment it came out on DVD, we purchased it because, big sci-fi family. And my dad's real into the classics, so he was like, yeah, we gotta watch it. And then we all sat down to watch it. And it wasn't as bad as the first time my entire family sat down to watch Cold Mountain. A lot of things you don't want to just take in your eyeballs at the same time as your parents with that particular film. But look, none of us have ever talked about the nipples, and none of us ever will talk about the nipples, but they were there in the room with us, like Jesus. When 3 or more of you gather in my name, I will be present. Such were the nipples in that film.
I will also say, so you didn't watch the end of the movie, but as someone who has recently shaved their head, I did take a little bit of umbrage at the end of the movie once they've made their escape. Mm-hmm. And pre-crime is down, and the precogs are off trying to live their lives on a farm next to a lake. Agatha's hair grows way too fast.
Yeah.
As someone who has just got a buzz cut, and we're going on month 3.5-ish since I've cut it. I've gotten maybe 1/4 of an inch grown.
I mean, here's the thing, too. I've never shaved my head totally, partly because I just know there's a weird mole under there. But I got my hair cut very, very short a few years ago, and it took me over a full year to get to like, oh, your hair is not growing out from like a pixie cut anymore. And I'm just saying.
Yeah, my hair right now looks very Rosemary's Baby, but like sloppy.
Rosemary's Baby when she actually had the baby, and then she's like sitting up with it all night being like, oh, what did you do to his eyes? I'm so tired.
Exactly. It's not a great look.
Got that new demonic mother vibe.
Yeah. But that did bother me. There's a lot of like it's just so creepy. It's so much creepier. But then if you look at the short story, terrifying. They're basically brains in a chair.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both pretty awful. Because, like, yeah, in the movie, they're just like, look, would you want to sit in milk for your whole adult life? No. But in the short story, they are strapped into the chairs with metal bands, which indicates to me they do not want to be there.
Yeah, and they're also pumped full of so many drugs throughout their life that they don't really look human anymore.
Yeah. Stunted, shriveled, these are words that are used.
It's nasty. It's bad. It's
also, like, strongly get the vibe that, like, in both the short story and the movie, it's like the ethics of, like, the pre-crime system on the populace are explored. I don't feel like a ton of exploration is done into just, like, the precog situation. Even in the movie where, like, Agatha's stuff is, like, a thing, it's more sort of just, like, you made them do this thing that was wrong. Not like, if it had been getting people who actually were definitely going to commit murders, fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they are released because the system had to go down, not because, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have been, like, using children to power any kind, like, not that, you know, I think they went in as adults, not as children, but so, you get what I'm saying.
Well, they started out training them, like, what is her name? I've got it
Professor
written down
Sprout
here.
is what we have canonically as a podcast decided to call her.
Hinneman. I know because it sounded like cinnamon when he first said it. I was like, ooh! Gonna go downstairs, make myself some hot cocoa, and then resume this movie. No, but so she says that they started out with kids, and that a lot of kids died in the process.
Yeah, like, maybe when whatever you're doing is resulting in the deaths of children, maybe you should pull back a little bit. Or just, like, give them some behavioral therapy. End of. Like, you know?
Yeah.
Like, why'd you gotta be adding all manner of concoctions to these babies?
Can we agree? It was weird when she leaned in close and whispered to him and then kissed him.
And it was not brought up in any way?
Not brought up.
It
It was not
very
important.
weird.
It's not like, oh, I just gave you an antidote, more antidote or something. Like...
Yeah, and then when he's, like, staring at her in, like, kind of, like, shock and, like, a little bit of horror, and you're like, oh, he's, like, putting together either that she's crazy or he's about to be like, what the fuck are you doing? Don't smooch somebody right now. Like, you didn't ask? I'm clearly not in the mood. Like, what? Are you... All he says is, are you crazy? I can't get into pre-crime right now. And it's like, he's horrified at her plan suggestion. It's not like, hey, it was weird to smooch me just then. Don't do a smooch in this situation.
Also, I would just like to talk about the eye horror in this movie.
Oh, dude, yeah. This is one of the reasons why I was not super sad that I did not finish the movie before we recorded.
I feel like you got through most of the eye horror. Like, especially when his dealer pulls up his eye. I was like, that's not how eye sockets work. That's extremely bad CGI that they did there.
Okay. Really quickly, the CGI in this movie is weirdly grainy. Like, most of my issues with CGI from the past is that it looks way too, like, smooth now. Like, it doesn't have the sort of texture of real life, and so it sticks out. But this was, like, a weirdly grainy CGI. Anyway, so, every time that I have watched Minority Report, I have closed my eyes or looked away from the screen during most of the scary eye stuff. The only thing that I saw in my youth was the eye socket stuff. You've never
watched the eye removal scene?
Yeah, like, I've been in the room, I've, like, heard it happening, I've seen, like, him eat the very bad sandwich afterward. Which I'm counting in my eye trauma from this film. But, because that was very upsetting. but I've never actually seen the eye removal scene because I refuse to look at it. Because anything to do with eyes, ears, teeth, or fingernails, I can't deal with it.
I don't know, for some reason I'm like, yeah, great. You don't actually ever see the eye get, like, plucked out necessarily. You see stuff go in, but it's mostly the gross part is the sound. That, like, when he's honestly hooking his eyes open like he's gonna get the Ludwiko technique.
It's funny how they all come back to you.
It makes a very distinct squelch.
Yeah.
And props to the Foley artist who found that squelch, because it is just so right.
Which, props to them on that and only that, because every single blow that is landed in any fight scene in this movie sounds like... It sounds like the punch that came before it. So, kind of props. Like,
there's also the scene where, like, the optic nerve, like, he just catches... He catches his old eyeball by the optic nerve as it goes down the sewer grate. Is like, really? Is fun. That's fun.
Fun is what we're gonna...
I'm gonna say that's fun. I'm gonna say that's a fun part of the movie when he's running down. He's like, no, 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 no. That's a moment of light in a really weird movie.
Sure. It's just a light romp. Just a mid-movie light romp of catching your own eyeball before it goes into a sewer. What are you talking about? You're a beast.
The thing is I remember there being a lot more eye horror when I first watched it, and I'm like, not that much. I remember him having to use the eyeballs more, and he didn't. I was a little disappointed.
Aren't we always using our eyeballs, Bridget, though? Like, if you think about it, if you just, like, sit with that thought.
I will also say the makeup artist was very good, because throughout the rest of the movie, the way his eyes look in his head is unnatural.
Yeah.
They sit uncomfortably in his skull.
Yeah.
In a way that I'm like, alright, yeah. Good job, makeup artist. Very subtle. But you're like, that's not right.
I also think the precogs look pretty fucking cool.
Oh, yeah. I briefly considered doing that for Halloween, and then I really thought about how much work would have to go into building that head sculpt and also, like, making that bodysuit for myself, and then I went, no.
And, like, highlighting your nipples that much, you know?
No.
Like, that just takes a lot of work to, like, craft that contrast. Sorry. Didn't mean to
get the hourglass palette out.
Nips on
just
air.
Highlight. Do some contour.
Yeah. Just, like, get one of those Kardashian kits and just really go for it. Do we want to talk about the technology? Do we feel like we've covered every... Because there's just not a lot to cover.
I will also say,
with
can
the
I just
short
say...
story. Yeah.
I love Colin Farrell. Don't get me wrong. But there is something about Colin Farrell in most movies that he's in where I'm like, I want to punch you. Even if he's a good guy. Even if he's a good guy.
I'm struggling to think of a movie where he's a good guy.
I mean, he's never like a good guy, but he's like a... Like, he's a bad guy in Bruges, but he's not like the worst guy, I guess.
I've been wanting to see The Lobster. He's in that, right?
Yes, I haven't seen that movie. He's also in...
I'm told it's very good, and it has eye horror.
Yeah. Killing of a Sacred Deer. He's in that one.
I want to see that movie. He's
Yeah.
also in The Beguiled. This is just a list of movies starring Colin Farrell that I would like to see, and I suspect he's very good in as a defense, but I've not seen them yet. This is what this section is.
I think he's pretty okay in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Him. Sad that his disguise of Colin Farrell had to get ripped off, so that now we're stuck with Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
It's like, no, can he get that disguise back?
Yeah. Can we just, like,
Because I'd like...
Colin?
I believe nice man Colin Farrell. Can I have him back? Yeah, but he just looks infinitely punchable. Also, it's like there's a thing that, and I've seen a lot of characters use. It's not just in this movie. And as someone who is more versed in Catholicism, like minutia day to day, I guess one could say, is that a thing? Because he wraps his medallion, his saint's medallion, around his hand to fight, and it's not just this movie that I've seen
Yeah,
it in,
that's
but
the
I'm
thing.
like,
That's what I was gonna call it on, was like...
that seems so impractical.
He leapt from the ground, hands-free, leapt from the ground onto this, like, mechanical moving arm platform thing. Hops up on there. Somehow when he hops up on there, his hand, like, he has it around his hand, and he kisses it and then puts it back in his pocket. And just practically, how would you do that? But also, like, it's this weird kind of performative Catholicism that I'm sure probably happens, but, like, most people are just gonna have a saint medallion around their neck.
And then you lift it up and kiss it, and then you tuck it back into your shirt.
Like, if the least they could have done is, like, because there's, like, patron saints for fucking everything. And I can't remember off the top of my head what the patron saint of police officers is, but I fucking know there is one, and it was in my head at some point who it was.
Probably, like, Michael or Andrew.
Maybe.
I feel like they just kind of or Patrick, one of those three just kind of gather everything under their big robes, and they're like, it's all mine.
It's also pretty common to have, like, a St. Christopher medal for protection.
Yeah.
And so, like, even if you wanted to be super lazy and just pick, like, but, like, that's usually just for travelers in general, not necessarily for police officers or first responders or whatever.
There's two St. Bridgets. One of them is for poets and blacksmiths, because they really had to ease in on the whole Celtic thing. And then the other one is the patron saint of Sweden, or one of them. Yeah.
I mean, there are just a lot of choices they could have done beyond just, like, hey, this is a crucifix. Smooch it sometimes, Colin. But, like, please, God, don't use your actual Irish accent to telegraph that you are both Catholic and Irish. A lot of thoughts on this one, Bridget. A lot of feelings. But those are all of them. I lay them bare before you. It was an okay short story. It was an interesting premise.
I did like the quote.
Decided to take a weird philosophical tact.
I believe Hinneman says, I really liked this quote, and I was like, okay. Who wants a justice system that instills doubt? It may be reasonable, but it's still doubt. Terrifying.
But also, reasonable doubt is supposed to... Oh, God.
That's the whole thing. That's why pre-crime's bad.
Yeah, but, like, I'm just saying... I have so many feelings. Also because, like, genuinely there is shit about our criminal justice system. Like, we are finding more and more that the forensics that we relied upon to be, like, 100% for sure is, like, a lot of the times just, like, kind of made up. And lie detector tests are about as accurate as flipping a coin as to whether or not they're actually lying or not. So, like, there's a lot of stuff in our current criminal justice system that is nonsense to use as evidence. It is used as evidence to convict people all the time.
DNA is not exactly great.
Yeah, it's not exact. Certainly, like, fibers, like forensic fiber analysis they are discovering not reliable, like, at all. And there's a ton of people that we put in prison forever. And yeah, maybe some of them did do it, but that doesn't mean that that's a system we should rely on. And so, like, it's crazy to me that, like, because some of this was known at the time that they made this movie. And they could have referred to the history of technology that is supposed to be infallible but isn't. And they didn't, because they had to tell you that cereal boxes will sing at you and advertise to you as you're eating them, you know? Or, like, hey, yeah, maybe you should look at your stuff more often. Actually, we don't really want to have a principle. Here, look at a watch a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, my feelings got real there at the end. Deal with it, Bridget.
So let's talk about science.
Please do.
So I just want to make a note. So I was actually listening to the soundtrack for the video game Braid while writing these notes, which is very funny. If you haven't played Braid and you have the access to play Braid, I believe it's on the Xbox store. It's just like it's not a big, it's an indie game. You can download it. Highly recommend it. It's got a really amazing story. I won't spoil it for you. It does. The game mechanics, though, involve, like, basically you do an action, and when you fuck up, you can rewind time and do something different.
Shit.
So listening to that soundtrack, which is a beautiful soundtrack, while doing these notes is very funny, because we're about to get into precognition and quantum physics.
Hell yeah. Hit me with your best shot, my friend.
So, precognition is basically sort of debunked by the principle of antecedents and causality, that an effect cannot occur before its cause, is the whole idea of debunking.
Totally. Everybody knows that.
Precognition, yeah. It's bullshit. ESP is not like... You can't... Anyway, but some people believe that precognition can be explained through quantum entanglement, that the idea that two distinct points in time can interact as if they are connected, and our brains receive and attempt to parse these signals during REM sleep. However, what's more likely with precognition is we as humans, both in memory and in dreams, are likely to notice hits rather than misses, big occurrences rather than small. So we dream things, and we're more like, and same thing for memory, you're more likely to remember big moments than you are small moments. Big coincidences rather than small coincidences, which makes you think, oh, I'm seeing the future, as opposed to like, oh, this is something I'm anxious about. I'm going to think a lot about it. It's going to get into my dreams, and my dreams are going to make it really funky. And then, well, when that thing happens, I'm seeing the future.
I have... Okay.
There's also a very good example of things stemming from anxiety is famously Abe Lincoln's dream of a casket surrounded by soldiers in the White House, and then he was assassinated 13 days later.
Yeah.
That's like the famous, like, ooh, was he precognitive? No. Like any president, he is probably anxious about getting killed, especially when a lot of people hated him at the time.
I mean, this is true. Sorry. Okay. So, Bridget.
Yes.
Quick intermission to say, have you ever had any dreams that you were like, oh, weird, I dreamt this?
So,
or like in moments where you, yeah.
Frequently, I don't know, it's just a thing my dreams have always done. I don't really have, like, a lot of... I will maybe once or twice a year have a very exciting dream where, like, oh, fantastical, magical stuff is happening. Oh, this could be a movie type dream. Most of my dreams are me running through, like, scenes, I guess, things I'm anxious about, and trying to plot out, my brain plots out, like, this could happen if I do this, or this could happen if I do this, trying to map out possibilities and timelines of what could happen. So then when that does happen, I'm like, oh, I was probably anxious about this and I dreamed it, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I get a lot of deja vu, and it's like, yeah, because I was anxious about this situation. So that's mostly my dreams, is me plotting out possible timelines of what could happen.
Okay. So, comparatively,
yes, how
I tend to have a lot of really intense dreams. I have dreams that are genuinely like watching movies that have nothing to do with my life. That like they have character development and backstory and like cool reveals and shit like that. Which is fun sometimes, but also a little shitty, because most of them are, in fact, horror movies, if we're going to use that terminology around of it. But, so, it's weird, because I don't tend to have, like, big moments where I'm like, hey, I dreamed this, like, this whole sequence of events ending like this. Like, I have things like, a very specific one that I remember was I was living in Colfax, Washington. And I remember I was like dreaming about being in a room that I'd never been in. And me and a bunch of people that I'd never met were like playing with tennis balls and 2x4s. And I was like, that's not what my usual dreams are like. This is very weird. And then I moved to Kent. And I started going to, like, a much bigger school. And I didn't, like, have any sort of, like, immediate, like, I've been here before. But when I'd been there 2 years, I was in 8th grade science, and we did an experiment. We did, like, a little science project. And it was, like, teaching us about inertia. And we were using tennis balls to, like, roll down different angles using 2x4s that we propped up against stuff. And it would, like, I suddenly, like, remembered that dream, and I was like, that's fucking weird. So it wasn't, like, a big event, and it wasn't, like, things that I would have, like, run through my head and, like, been able to put that imagery together.
Yeah. That might be more of a situation of the brain remembering hits and details rather than misses.
How do you mean?
So, the human brain is... this happens with memory, too, where your memory is going to get skewed certain ways after a certain point in time. Mm-hmm. Once you gain what's called, like, psychic distance.
Love that term.
No, yeah, it's really fun to say. It's used a lot when you're writing creative nonfiction, is that you want to gain psychic distance from something. You know how it's like, oh, you'll laugh about this later.
Okay,
kind of situation. You want to gain psychic distance from the situation so it doesn't hurt as bad. Mm-hmm. And then you can be like, this is a really good story. But so when you do that, though, you lose minor details, and you just remember key points that when you're thinking back on them later, this is like key deja vu. When you're thinking back on them later, you're like, oh, I remember these 3 things being together. There might have been a different situation that they were in, but you remember those key things together, and that makes... And people who are a little bit more susceptible to things like ESP and that general oeuvre are like, oh, I'm psychic. I had a precognitive dream, as opposed to, like, I dreamed about this thing one time, and my brain is making that connection, as opposed to the theory of trying to be like quantum physics. I'm seeing at a different point in the timeline. Time is a spiral, not a straight line. And time is a spiral. That doesn't mean that we can see other parts of that spiral.
For sure. Yeah. For the record, I'm not saying that I'm, like, magical and know exactly when I'm going to come across tennis balls in my future. I was just like, oh, interesting, big events, because, like, I don't experience, like, deja vu around big events. I go like, oh, I had these elements were in a thing once. Crazy.
Yeah.
So we have the spectrum represented on our podcast.
Yeah, that's precognition. Let's talk about the science of pre-crime.
Hit me with a goat to stare at real quick. That's all I'm saying. Tell me about pre-crime. Sorry.
Pre-crime, already a thing. Not as intense, but it's already a thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a thing for a while. So, first of all, we have behavioral analysis is like an actual science, sort of.
Yeah.
Way blown out of proportion on the hit TV show Criminal Minds, which I've been getting, unfortunately, back into. They got 2 new hotties on the show.
It's not real.
What am I supposed to do with it? They got 2 new hotties and Eternal Hottie Paget Brewster on. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I gotta come back. Anyway, yes, so behavioral analysis is an actual science that, like, FBI does. The idea behind... I just started watching Mindhunter.
Oh, it's so good.
It's really good. But the thing that does exist is IBM created this system called, the acronym for it is Blue Crush.
That's a great movie, too.
Great movie. Terrifying when you think about it in the idea of, oh, the police, and we're calling it Crush.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up that particular context, and I do feel just like a thrill of adrenaline, so there is that.
It's used in DC, haha, right now.
For people who didn't watch the movie, that's where the initial pre-crime program is placed.
Yeah. So what it does is it uses predictive analysis, looking back at previous crime trends over the last decades, however many decades. It goes through to predict crime hotspots at certain points in time. So, like, crimes in this neighborhood are more likely to happen during this time frame of this nature. And they send cops there, and people get arrested. Crime has gone down 31% in D.C. because of this computer program.
This is suspicious to me.
It's very suspicious.
This is like broken windows policing.
Especially because a lot of the crime it's probably, quote-unquote, stopping is probably, like, drug-related.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like I said, like the whole broken windows thing of, like, this type of, if you prevent this type of crime will go down. And, like, yeah, you get a shit ton more arrests. And then people start avoiding I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, if you send someone to a specific area and tell them to, like, find the crime, you're assuming the crime is already going on there.
Yeah, and they're not going to
fucking precog
kind of create the crime.
Yeah.
The crime creates itself by nature of someone looking for it. But we obviously we use in a more, like, small scale. You have CCTV cameras everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Including in stores and in, like, parking garages. So the way people move around stores and the way their body language is in parking garages, for example, car thieves are going to amble around a parking garage, whereas most people, when they're in a parking garage, go car, escalator, elevator, whatever gets them out of that parking garage, as opposed to a car thief, which will amble around. They won't make a beeline. And that's how you can tell, oh, well, there's our thief. They're kind of making figure eights around this area. That's weird. But the same thing when you're looking at closed captioning in a store, as someone who's worked retail and has dealt with loss prevention.
Do you mean closed circuit?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Look, I stayed up until 2:30 in the morning watching this movie last night.
Which in and of itself is going to do terrible things to your brain.
Yeah. So closed circuit television, you have that in stores. It's not great. It's, like, still you can't, like, move the camera around, which has always bothered me, because then that in itself creates blind spots. But people have certain body language techniques that you teach to employees to look out for so that you can identify theft. But sometimes that's just someone being uncomfortable around people.
Yeah.
And then that person is followed through stores. And you hear that a lot. Which is
going to make them more uncomfortable.
Of someone's in a, you know, when you try to predict crime and you try to predict crime behaviors, a lot of the time what you end up doing is going after people who are innocent.
Yeah. Also, like,
someone's dressed a certain way, someone's moving a certain way, you're going to target them.
Also, the more that you, like, look at someone in this sort, like, the more you put someone in this, like, panopticon of criminal assumption, like, the more uncomfortable they will be, the more furtive they will act because they're not comfortable being watched the way that you're watching them. So you're eventually going to create the behaviors that you're looking for in terms of, like, signaling bad intention just due to discomfort.
Yeah, nothing is more uncomfortable than being in a store with a security guard that is actively moving around where you are.
Yeah.
That sucks. I've been in like the H&M that used to be next to a store that I worked at. The security guard was basically just standing by the door the whole time, and I was like, whatever. But when they're moving around near where you are, you're like, all of a sudden exhibiting behaviors that a thief would exhibit because you're uncomfortable and you're watching your every move.
Yeah. One time I went into a super fancy store in New York City, and I was just very clearly was not the clientele for this store. I went in there with my friend who I was visiting the big city with. Like, I had my backpack on. This was the level of tourist I was in that moment. And it was like the security guard might as well have gone, like, arm in arm with us and, like, walked like It's a Jolly Holiday with Mary around the store before, like, shoving us out. It was like how much he was not okay with us being in there. And, like, it's bananas how that makes you feel. And I'm super lucky that I am not of a demographic where I have to deal with that all the time.
Yeah. It's, generally, and it sucks because sometimes you have a lot of stuff to carry around somewhere, but it's, like, backpacks automatically make you a target in stores. I was at my old job, and I happened to be doing a walkthrough with our district manager. One of the other employees came in before shift, and he was looking around, and he had his backpack on, and she goes, has anyone spoken to him? Someone needs to go check on him. And we're like, he works here.
Damn, lady.
Yeah. So more science.
Yes, hit me with it.
So, like I said, we're a way off from halos. We're not quite there yet. I'm sure the technology is being worked on to...
Can you give a brief overview of the halo for the listener who does not want to subject themselves to 2.5 hours of Tom Cruise being too fit for the role he's been cast in?
Tom Cruise... So, the halo is what the police use to... It's basically like a zip tie for your brain. It makes the one that they use out on the street allows for movement, and basically turns your body into, like, kind of like a docile sheep, and traps your consciousness inside of itself. The full halo, which is what they put prisoners in, shuts down your body, but your brain is still chugging away.
Aren't they in a virtual reality world, though?
In the
Doesn't it
nice
say that at a
one,
certain
the
point?
nice one, the place where he goes, the hacker.
Yeah.
By the way, that guy's sandals. The guy's whole outfit is great, but the guy's sandals, he's wearing these, like, gold bejeweled flip-flops that just kind of flop around everywhere.
As you do.
As you do when you're a top hacker. It's a very interesting hack outfit, something I was like, oh, a hacker wearing some bright colors and some shiny things for once. Not a greasy
have you
trench
seen
coat.
the movie Hackers? Because I feel like there's a lot of very vibrant outfits in that film.
I know, it's just nice. When I think of hacker and it's like a cyberpunk futuristic dystopia, it's not.
Yeah, it's all very Matrixy.
Yeah.
But
So I liked his
real
outfit, but
life.
the way the halo, but the halo's the guy, the prison guard, who plays the organ.
Yeah, he's also in Holes and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and many, many good films.
Yeah. Him and Peter Stormare were both in a lot of movies in the 2000s. But he says that your mind is racing the entire time that you're in there, and that you're seeing visions. So maybe it is a little bit of a virtual reality, but it's a virtual reality where you're getting mad the whole time.
Cool.
And you have no control over your body. It just sits there.
It sounds like my current reality, am I right? Guys.
But another thing is the sick sticks.
Oh, God. Fine. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about vomit sticks. Not too unrealistic. Penn State has developed a system that emits ultra bright light pulses to induce temporary blindness, disorientation, and nausea. And as we see, so there's a cool weapon that I really was like, oh yeah, which is the sonic shotgun.
Oh, yeah, in the movie.
And what actually can cause nausea like that is a sonic device that you can buy for $40 on Amazon.
Cool.
That's a real
Cool,
thing you
I'm
can
glad.
buy to arm your house so that if a burglar gets in, they just start puking all over the place.
I would almost rather he, like, take some cash, you know? Like...
Because he's gonna get away,
I have to
and he's
pick
gonna
up.
just leave a lot of puke behind that you have to clean up, and broken glass.
Ugh,
But so, yeah, that is the thing. So noise is more likely to be used in order to create nausea. I mean, you think about, like, it's not the brown note thing.
Yeah.
There are certain sonic levels that make you sick, that make you dizzy. So that is a realistic thing. And also, God, that sonic shotgun.
That was another thing where I was just like, does he have to spin it that many times for it to work?
You gotta charge it up.
Is that how many times? But, like...
It's like a crank system.
Practical. It's not practical, Bridget.
Yeah, but so those are my science things. Also the spider camera scanners. That's like a regular thing. A lot of banks are using eye scanners now. You would have to do so much, like, data compilation on people in order to get their eyes to, like, register, like a registry system for people's eyes so that you know who to market to.
Yeah.
That seems nigh on impossible. But it also, the other thing is that, like, you can't really do, maybe in the future, like, they're working on developing technologies so that you can transplant a whole eyeball.
Yeah.
But the problem is that you have to completely take out and preserve the optic nerve.
Yeah.
Which is not yet realized. You're doing usually a corneal transplant.
Yeah.
Of some kind. Anyway, that's... Hey, it could happen. Most of
Mostly.
it, hey, it's kind of happening, other than precognition.
Yeah, except for the central premise of the short story, which is ostensibly what this podcast is qualified to cover. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, the story, no, it can't happen. Also, everything's so analog in the story, which, of course, when it was written, duh. But it's just always, I've said this before, it always throws me. Mm-hmm. When stuff is supposed to be so future-y, but it's also so, like, profoundly clunky. The intro scene talks about how in Anderton's office, the walls are just lined with files.
Yeah. I will say, apart from the other planets and shit, like, this could, like, the short story could almost be urban fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
They could have, like, if you just switched it to, like, oh, you'll get banished to other realms, it would just be like, oh, yeah, that makes as much sense as anything else. Shall I tell you who the sweetheart of this short story with not a lot of people in it is?
I have a good guess, but go ahead.
I might surprise you.
Ooh.
It's not Lisa.
Oh!
Yeah. It's Whitwer.
Oh, yeah, Whitwer. He's just doing his job.
Yeah, because we've established that, like, a badass who gets shit done, even if they're, like, a totally nice person, very, like, even, like, a cuddly badass who gets shit done, it does not quite qualify to be a sweetie who's doing a great job. And Lisa, like, knows what's up. I mean, to a degree, she, like, assesses the situation, she makes a decision, she carries out the decision, even if it's hard, she's, like, capable. She's doing a great job, but she's not like, oh, honey. She's just like, she's just very short. Because she doesn't need that from you. Thank you. Lisa's fine.
Lisa's got this.
Whitwer doesn't know what the fuck is happening at any point in time. Like, even as Anderton is leaving the planet, he's just like, well, John, what just happened? I'm so confused, and I wanted this job. I just want to do good in this world. And John's like, yeah, well, this could happen to you at any time, so just watch out, okay? And Whitwer's like, what?
Yeah.
But he's like, he's not incompetent. He just is like, oh, this is all really hard, and oh boy. Like, he's a little bit of, like, a wide-eyed little kid while still being someone who, like, is very ambitious and very much wants this chief of police job. And it sort of seems like he's the only person who, like, leaves this story like, did we do the right thing?
Yeah, he's the one who's like, did we should we maintain pre-crime?
Yeah, whereas Anderton and Lisa are both, like, firmly, yes, I have put my life and my comfort at a lower level than, like, maintaining this system, which if it was a fair system, cool, but it's, like, a fucked up system.
It's an extremely fallible system.
They're only, like, 2/3 sure at any given time, most of the time, that someone is going to commit a crime. And that's, like, barely, like, if you think about it, that's, like, a little over half.
Yeah.
That's not even a C. You got a D to F plus in certainty that someone is going to commit a crime.
And you throw them in a prison camp. Away.
So, Whitwer being a little bit like, I'm not so sure, y'all, but I guess we avoided a civil war? And then, like, sorry, massive yawn there. So low on oxygen over here. But yeah, he's just, you know, he's got moral twinges, but he's doing his best. And I think, you know, and he's also, like, a little bit younger than everyone else in the story, because it seems like John and his wife are roughly the same age. Everyone else in the story is a little bit older. He's coming in. He's, like, this new upstart. They mentioned that he is younger several times. And I think that it just made me very fond of him as, like, this sort of, like, oh gosh, oh boy. But let's make sure no one gets hurt in this, like, dystopian future, but maybe this isn't the way to do it.
Yeah.
So, Whitwer, sweetie, you're doing a great job. What even is our next book, Bridget?
Oh boy, I have no idea. I want to say it's another teen book?
That makes sense. I'll pull it up. If you have anything to talk about the film that we watched while I do this.
I mean, I had a ton of notes. I had a ton of notes, guys. I'll talk about the computers really quick. Those are goofy. The Tony Stark computers. The giant glass Tony Stark computers with the fun gloves that are like your mouse. That look like they're for something distinctly more dirty.
What? What do you think they look like?
Like for finger stuff.
Bridget, if anything, they look like archery gloves.
I guess, but, like, that also looks a little bit like finger stuff.
What finger stuff do you need? What are you talking about? Who needs that much, like, that shit was like Kevlar on half his hand.
I don't know. Some people are probably into it.
Oh, man. What even, oh boy.
But yeah, it's like the articles I read compared it to a Kinect. Mm-hmm. That it was predictive of Kinect technology, and I'm like, nah. More predictive of what we were going to do in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I've discovered what our next book is going to be. Would you like to know what it is?
Yeah.
It is the first in a series, and it might be the first in a series that we might finish. Not all in one go, but Uglies by Scott Westerfeld.
Yeah!
I've never read this book.
I have.
Have you read it?
It's been a long time. I'm sure I have my copy around here somewhere. I'm going to have to root around like a pig looking for truffles in this house.
Well, it is on that mental image, gentle listeners, that we leave you for this installment. Join us in 2 weeks for Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. Whatever our sign-off is.
I can never remember.
Thank you for listening to Could Be Worse. If you enjoyed the episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on Stitcher, Google Play, or the iTunes Store, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can check out our website at couldbeworsepod.com. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook with the handle @couldbeworsepod. And check out more from your humble and loving hosts on Twitter and Instagram at the handles @Magnesium Queen for Bridget and @Caitlin Obum. For me, I remain Caitlin Obum. Thank you for listening, and we will have another episode for you on Scott Westerfeld's Uglies in 2 weeks. It's gonna be real good. I really enjoyed this book. Hooray! See you then!